All right, awesome. So thank you everyone for joining. You have found the Career Planning Tools webinar. We're so excited to have you here today to learn to navigate some online tools and resources provided by the National Wildlife Federation to help you explore career opportunities. So this webinar is a part of a three-part series called Preparing for a Career in Science. It's a webinar series for high school students. You might have joined us on our first two. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to build a strong resume. Last week, we spoke with some really fantastic environmental professionals from Western New York about their career journey. And today we're going to be talking about those career planning tools. I definitely encourage you to please check out the recordings of the past webinars if you missed them, and to also keep an eye on our website, which is in there in bright green, because we're going to have more opportunities coming up this spring and summer. So to start us off, I'll introduce myself really quick. My name is Claudia Rosen. I'm a community engagement coordinator at Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. If you haven't heard of Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, we're a nonprofit organization whose mission is to protect and restore water and surrounding ecosystems for the benefit of current and future generations. So we do a lot of different work in the Niagara River watershed, from restoring shorelines to getting people out on their water and connecting to that. So today we're doing a little bit of that, right, by some education programs and speaking about careers in science. So I'll be facilitating this webinar, and I'm also joined by Liz Cute, who I mentioned at the beginning, who's going to be helping us out. She is a senior program manager at Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. She's going to be recording this webinar. Another little piece of housekeeping is that we may use the poll function on the webinar. So at some point throughout the webinar, you might see a question pop up. That is a poll question, and you can actively participate by clicking an answer to that question. We also have the question and answer function. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a button, and you should be able to ask questions. You can ask questions throughout the webinar once we have our speaker talking to us today, or you can save your questions till the end, and we can ask them. So that kind of wraps up our housekeeping. But quickly before we start, I just want to take a moment to reflect on where we are. I mentioned that Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper focuses its work on the Niagara River watershed. This map right here, the yellow color represents that watershed. You'll see in orange, that orange star is the city of Buffalo, the city of Niagara Falls, and then where I'm calling in from, which is right at the edge of our watershed by 18 Mile Creek in Derby. And I think it's really cool that we've got students from all over our watershed tuning in to this webinar. We live in such a special place because we're in between two Great Lakes. We're in between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And we know that the Great Lakes provide drinking water for millions of people. So the things that we do in our watershed, our practices, and the way that we live our lives impacts millions of other people through our water. So hopefully you're interested in stewardship, and you can contribute to that by preparing for a career in science by just attending this webinar today. So thank you for joining us. I also want to acknowledge that I'm recording and hosting this webinar from the original territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So this map shows the historic and current territory of the Haudenosaunee. And they lived here long before European settlers came here. And we want to acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land and this water. So if you are interested, I encourage you also to check out that link at the bottom. You can look at other areas in the United States and Canada and look at the native territories. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce our speaker for today, David Kosar. He is a career development programs manager with NWF. And I'll just give a little talk about who he is before he gets started. His academic and career path started with a BS and a master's in engineering in environmental engineering from Old Dominion University, and a 9-year career as a water and wastewater environmental engineer before transitioning to public service with an MPA from George Mason University and 2 years of Peace Corps service in the Republic of Armenia. He is now the manager of career programs at the National Wildlife Federation, where he is responsible for managing an online career center and the annual NWF Eco Careers Conference. So David, we're so excited to hear from you and learn a little bit about the tools that NWF can provide to students who might be interested in exploring careers in science. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. I'm really excited to share about our programs, our tools, and our resources. I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen now. Are you able to see that? And I'll enter into presenter mode, and that should be good. Cool. So this presentation will go through the National Wildlife Federation's Eco Leaders Career Center and career programs. And these tools, resources, and events, they can all be accessed and used independently. However, for this presentation, I'm going to reference what we call our career planning tool as a way to organize and introduce each of the internal and external resources. I want to start out by asking the participants to add in the chat box, what is one goal that you have for your career? And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about my career path. Claudia gave you my bio, which is great, but I wanted to hone in on a couple pieces because this is a focus on careers in science. And I do have a background in STEM, but it's not necessarily what I do right now. So I started out, as Claudia mentioned, with a bachelor in environmental engineering. I worked for an environmental engineering firm. My title was environmental engineer. It was about as linear as you could get. But I burnt out. I wasn't really doing the types of projects and the type of work that I found fulfilling. And so after 9 years, I decided to switch things up. Now, while I was working as an environmental engineer, I had been volunteering at an organization called Water for People, which is an international water, wastewater, sanitation nonprofit organization. And I really enjoyed that. And I thought, well, what could a career look like similar to the work that I was doing for that organization? And that's what encouraged me to get another master's degree, this time in public administration, and also to get international experience through service in the Peace Corps. And ultimately, that's what brought me to the National Wildlife Federation. And that I found a position where I was able to pull from the skills that I had developed in my previous career, as well as in my Peace Corps service, as well as the education that I had from both of my degrees. And I know that if you're watching this, you're most likely already somewhat interested in a career in science or in STEM. But I do still want to mention one piece of advice that I often give, especially to high school students. It's much, much easier to study STEM in undergraduate and then transition away from STEM if that's what you decide later on, say into policy or business or nonprofit work or education, through supplementing that degree with additional trainings or certifications, advanced degrees and other topics, than it is to go in the opposite direction. It's really hard to pick up those STEM basics and that STEM mastery on your own externally outside of a college atmosphere. So if you're on the fence, I would definitely strongly recommend you truly consider a STEM degree and supplement that with a non-STEM minor or with work experience, project experience that kind of supplements that. So this is the homepage to our Career Center, which is located within our free Eco Leaders community. After creating a profile on nwfecoleaders.org, simply click on Careers, and you'll notice that this brings up a secondary horizontal menu bar organizing the various elements of the Career Center. And one of those tabs is the career planning tool that I mentioned that I'm going to use to frame this presentation. Our career planning tool was designed to help you begin or continue your career planning process through various steps. And the goals of this tool are to help you sort through, organize, and manage various streams of information about yourself, academic opportunities, career possibilities all in one place. Also to identify career positions and pathways that tap into your strengths and interests and align with your values and personality and where you want to make a difference in the world. Also to provide additional information to help you get the most out of successive conversations that you have with guidance counselors, with your teachers, with college career services offices, to really get more out of those conversations down the line. And then also to reinforce that the understanding that you're in the captain's seat when it comes to your career. While the captain is in charge of setting the direction of a ship, the path that that ship ultimately takes is going to be influenced by externalities like currents and storms, and it's up to the captain to decide whether to change direction, seek a new port, or return to the original plan. And nowadays, career paths are far less linear than they used to be. We don't really talk as much about climbing the career ladder because a lot of people really don't follow that linear pathway anymore. And you really have to be somewhat entrepreneurial in deciding where you're going to go along your career path. So entering into the world of work with that mindset already is going to pay dividends and help you avoid the kind of burnout that I experienced earlier in my career. So our career planning tool takes you through 5 different steps, and they are reflection, research, resolution, realization, and reaching out. And this presentation is going to focus more on the first 2 steps and then introduce briefly the remaining 3, if we have time. So career coaches will agree that the first step in developing a personal career plan is to assess oneself. And different counselors will utilize various tools and assessments to perform this step. We've collected a handful of online tools that we recommend to use to differentiate and identify your values, your interests, your personality type, and your strengths. And we definitely recommend that you do a variety of different types of assessments. Going back to my example of burnout, I knew when I was in high school that I was good at math and science. And so I decided early on, I went to the library, I checked out a real book. We had the internet, but it wasn't quite as easy to use and find the information that you needed, but checked out actual books about careers. I did a very minimal amount of research. I saw what I was good at, so my strengths, and I was interested in the environment. And I kind of just went from there. I said, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to study, and I don't want to, reconsider that along the way. So I give this presentation to encourage folks not to make the mistakes that I made early on, and to really do a bit more self-assessment and external research before committing to a career path. So this is the first page of our career planning tool, where you can enter the results of your self-assessments. And you'll notice on the right side of the page, there are links to external resources. And some of those external resources are, say, the VIA Institute on Character. It has a free values assessment to help folks identify their core workplace values, important in evaluating different career paths as well as specific workplaces. The US Department of Labor's ONET website has a good interest assessment that can help you identify work tasks that sound interesting and also identify jobs that are based around those tasks. Now, as this site provides both a summary of the results of your assessment as well as links to suggested careers, I just want to remind you all that self-assessments should be considered as guides and suggestions that and suggest that your reactions, your gut feelings, your interpretations of those results are just as important as the results themselves. So definitely, whenever you're taking these self-assessments, if something seems odd to you, maybe think about why it seems odd. Maybe there's an aspect of your personality that you haven't really considered and delved into, or maybe it is that just the test wasn't a good fit for you and you can try another one. So the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is a personality type assessment that's received a lot of attention in popular culture. And there's even a recent documentary about its origins and its misuse called Persona that I would actually definitely recommend checking it out. That said, I do still think this is a tool that's helpful to explore one's default modes, patterns, but it's by no means a summation of one's characteristics or abilities. The website 16 Personalities offers a well-designed test that recognizes those limits and can provide you with a lens with which to evaluate yourself and what kind of workplaces may work well for you. And then the last assessment is one that we recommend more for older audiences, college students and young professionals who have a bit more work experience. And the skills matcher provided by the US Department of Labor's Career One Stop website helps people who have prior work experience tease out transferable skills that they possess. Many people who do have work experience have a difficult time envisioning themselves on different career paths. So identifying and articulating those transferable skills can be an important part of self-assessment prior to researching potential pathways. So before today's session, you may have been invited to fill out an interest self-assessment. And this is a quick form that we developed based on the popular RIASEC or RIASIO. It's just the 6 types career interest questionnaire. So if you had the time, if you got that link yesterday or earlier and had the opportunity to fill out the self-assessment and get your results, please go ahead and pop that into the chat and we can potentially discuss that. And I just realized, okay, I do see in the chat now. Yeah, so for me, this is, and actually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go to the next screen to discuss these results. So there's 6 different types that you'll get a result for, and you'll get a score in each of the types. It's not this is you, but we are all good at all of these things to different degrees, or we jive with these things to different degrees. And they are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and organizers. And we have a description of each of those. So what it sounds like, if you say your highest score is investigative, you're probably someone who gets a lot of joy out of solving difficult problems, logic problems, maybe science. Or you may be higher in social, or if you're high in enterprising, an entrepreneurial pathway would likely be one that you would find fulfilling. This is one that, going back to my example again, I didn't realize how social I was. I'm introverted in terms of the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. And so I interpreted that as I would be okay with a type of job where I'm sitting at a computer and doing calculations and writing reports. And the social aspect is in meetings, but not really that much. Most of the work that I did was not particularly social, but I have a high social score. And that was one of the reasons that I burnt out, was that I didn't get to collaborate and co-design different projects and some of the type of work that I do now that is much more social and much more fulfilling for myself. And I also want, we'll go ahead and share that link with everyone, the JOT form. I definitely recommend that you do that. Again, you interpret the results as they make sense to you. Don't take anything as scripture, but it's a great way to start the career research process and get some ideas of where to look next. So I'm going to move on to the next step. So the second step in the career development process, or the career planning process, is for many the most daunting. And especially today, it can be difficult to keep track of all of the different opportunities and possibilities for you to consider. In this section of the career planning tool, we encourage you to jot down the sectors, the careers, the opportunities that catch your eye. And we encourage you at this stage to be big, to think big, be audacious, and seek out information and inspiration from a variety of sources. Make a list, include hyperlinks, and spend time exploring the unknown. And in order to envision the green economy as a whole, we've developed what we call the green economy compass. I'll use hiking metaphors a lot when I'm talking about developing a career plan. And this is one of them. And this compass, it groups the career sectors in 4 cardinal directions: jobs in nature, infrastructure, products, and then this nebulous ideas and services, which is actually where I work now. This is by no means a comprehensive way to organize careers, but it can be helpful to help you delineate and organize your career research. So if you are participating live, if you want to enter into the chat box, what is of the 13 sectors of the green economy, what is the most interesting to you? And I will go ahead and continue on while you're doing that. So in addition to the results of the self-assessments, and in looking at the bigness of the economy as a whole and the green economy, and our philosophy is that all jobs can be green jobs if the person doing them comes in with a sustainability mindset. But some additional aspects that you want to consider in deciding between directions is what type of work is interesting or fun for you. What activities or subjects in school are those where time passes quickly for you? Now, this is something that we call flow. When you enter the flow, you may always get A's in history, but you find yourself staring at the clock the whole time and just counting down until the class is over. That would not be one where you experience flow. For me, it was definitely my math classes. I would go in, I would do the assignments, I would listen to the lessons, and all of a sudden the bell would ring. So in addition, other questions, what do you find yourself paying attention to in newspapers or in television news or on Facebook or other social media? And then also, what areas do you have an existing network or professional connections? This is, again, another one that we probably is more oriented towards college students and early career professionals. But if you, in your self-assessment and in your career research, you find yourself being pulled towards a career where, say, your parents or uncles or another aunts or another type of relative or family friend, make sure you ask them, ask the questions and learn from the network that you do have. So this is what our career sector outlook looks like. Again, we have 13 matching those 13 directions on the green economy compass. And I'm going to highlight one on habitat and wildlife careers. And each one of these outlooks has an introduction and overview, insights on the sidebar from professionals working in the field, trends in employment and ideas for job titles to use in searching for more information, average salaries for different education levels, related webinar archives, potential academic programs and certifications to consider, as well as project examples from our own databases and from our eco-leaders community, so that you can learn how you may be able to get direct project-based leadership experience while you're still a student, whether you're still in high school or in college. And it also contains a list of additional internal and external resources. So I definitely recommend starting there. Say you already know that you want to go into water resources or environmental justice. We have career sector outlooks that give you the big picture view. It's not going to give you a detailed career pathway to get from point A to point B, but it can help you in the research phase to figure out what's the best fit for you and where you may want to go for more information. Another form of career research is done through informational interviews. Now, we've done 75 plus interviews of inspiring eco-professionals across a wide variety of jobs and sectors to help students gain inspiration and information, as well as use as a template for conducting your own informational interviews. Now, I know that that can seem kind of scary to some or daunting, but I hear from professionals all the time that if they were to hear from a high school student, especially, that they heard about what they do, they saw an article about what they do, they saw their LinkedIn profile, and they said, you know what, I just want to know a little bit more about that. Would you be okay with taking 15 minutes to answer some questions about what your work life looks like? It would be such a fantastic honor to be able to provide that information to young people. And especially if you're a high school student and you're talking to someone in a position that would require a degree, they would know that you're not coming them looking for a job. Because that is one of the tough parts, is that when asking for an informational interview, you don't want to make it seem like you're trying to get hired, that you really are just doing the research about a particular career. And the younger you are, and if you're in high school, it really is a benefit to you that assumption probably won't come with that ask. And here's an example of one of our informational interviews of an entrepreneur that got his start working on a water conservation program at his school. And I wanted to show this because if you scroll down, this is just a screenshot, but if you scroll down, you can even just look at the questions that we asked each of these eco-professionals in order for you to brainstorm what kind of questions you may want to ask in your own informational interviews. And then finally, the annual Eco Careers Conference is a fantastic opportunity for students and young professionals to network directly with professionals in a variety of fields, get advice and access interactive workshops, hear from major employers and across a variety of sectors. It's entirely online and has been from before the pandemic. We just had our 5th annual Eco Careers Conference earlier this month. It was really fantastic, and access is widespread, cost is low, most people access it for free. It's free for high school students regardless, and then free for individuals who create a profile in our Eco Leaders community. And obviously the environmental impact is minimal because there's no travel involved, which is fantastic. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to quickly go over the other 3 steps of the career planning tool. The next step is, what is your eco mission? And key to the NWF Eco Leader philosophy is the idea of a personal mission. So we encourage you to spend some time thinking about the results of the first 2 steps, the self-assessment and the research. Combine your passions, your interests, values, all of that into a 1 to 3 sentence personal mission statement. And again, we offer both internal and external resources to help you facilitate this process. And in particular, we'd recommend taking some time to check out the eco missions of other Eco Leader community members. You can look for folks that are nearby in your city or in your state, or folks that are interested in the same sectors of the economy or types of jobs. Check out the projects that they've done and see what their eco mission is. And maybe you want to help that or use that in writing your own. The 4th section of the career planning tool is to realize, identify the steps that connect where you are now and where you want to go to achieve your mission. And we've broken this down into 3 sections: academic certification or continuing education, and networking goals. And through both internet research and in informational interviews, we encourage you to identify institutions, degree programs, and courses that are recommended to help you realize your goal. And the additional certifications that can help you that can help set you apart from your peers when it actually comes time to applying for jobs. And then also understand how to start building your professional network. As I mentioned, all of the tools and resources are on the site. Just wanted to introduce these steps. The last step of the career planning tool is reaching out. And that is taking the information, the inspiration, the plans, the goals, and identifying some smaller, more immediate steps that can be taken towards them. So the career planning process, I mentioned it's daunting, but research into change and change processes, they show that emphasizing breaking larger goals into smaller, immediately actionable steps makes the process far more successful. So we encourage you to start right away. Ask for some informational interviews, join a professional network, join an association, start to attend conferences like the Eco Careers Conference, seek out mentors, or even be a mentor yourself. That's one of the really great ways to learn about your own working style as a mentor to younger or older folks that you may be able to share your knowledge with, and also apply for internships when available. Now, if anyone that is participating now has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. I also know we are running up on time, but I'd be happy to stay on a few minutes and answer any questions.
So if we have any questions while folks are typing it in the chat, I just want to say thank you so much, David. That was fantastic. It's really great to hear about all of these tools that you have available for students. I wanted to mention 2 things. One, you mentioned how reaching out to possible mentors or folks in the field is a good step. And to anyone watching this webinar, I would offer that both Liz and I and all the folks at Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper are here for that purpose. We love to hear from students. We love to get connected with students. So if you are interested in maybe working in a nonprofit or working for any of the variety of different types of environmental work that Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper does, please do reach out to us. We'd be happy to be a part of that process as you're exploring careers. And I also wanted to say, it was really interesting to me to see the variety of different steps and kind of internal reflection that's necessary. And I think that that has been really a theme of this webinar series, that every person is unique, right? And we've got lots of different types of people that want to get involved. And that's great because we've got some really big, diverse, challenging environmental problems out there. And we're going to need all different types of people in the science field to solve it in the future. So I thought that was a fantastic theme.
Yeah, and in addition to that, having, even if the career isn't necessarily in the science field, having that scientific understanding. I know one of the interviewees was a lawyer who mentioned having the value of having the scientific understanding of natural resources in order to be a better environmental lawyer. So again, going back to the point I made earlier on, I definitely would recommend studying science if you have the opportunity to in undergraduate or other manners. One of the other things I wanted to mention, so going back to the first in this series on preparing a resume, there are so many really great tips and tricks and recommendations. If you haven't watched that, definitely do. And I would echo or add to that to get started on LinkedIn and building your professional network. Once you have that first draft of a resume, it's really easy to then populate a LinkedIn profile, and that's a great way to connect with myself as well as other environmental professionals and start building your network, and also just set yourself apart from other peers. And so that always, oh, and LinkedIn also has really great tools and resources specifically for students to help get them started on their platform.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice.
Contact information up as well.
Oh, perfect.
I should have put my LinkedIn profile, but it's easy. So I'm actually David Corsar, C-O-R-S-A-R, and it's pretty easy to find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thanks so much, David, for joining us. And thank you everyone who joined this webinar live. Please do go back, check out our website to watch the past webinars and to stay up to date on some future opportunities that we'll have coming up this spring and summer. We will have this recording up on our website as well. And please do reach out to us if you have any questions. So thank you.